Good afternoon and welcome to Who's Right. I'm Sandra McFadden and we're happy to have as our guest today Tommy Thompson, who is running for U.S. Senator here in Wisconsin. Tommy, welcome to the show.
Sandra, it's my privilege and thank you, and welcome home from Los Angeles to Wisconsin.
Oh, thank you. I know, it's a pleasure. I love being in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a great state. People are just fantastic, and I'm so happy that your son has 6 grandchildren, and that attracts you and makes you have your home in Wisconsin. So whatever it is, as long as you're living in Wisconsin, congratulations.
I'm here. I've been here for 3 years,
well, that's
so
good.
It's a good place to be.
It is. It's a wonderful state.
Well, I wondered about you. You've been in public service for many years, but how did you start out? What was your first job in public service?
I was working my way through college. I grew up very poor in a small city of Elroy. I tell people that Elroy is so small you can call somebody, get a wrong number, and still talk for half an hour. So that's how small my hometown of Elroy was. And we grew up poor, and I came to the university with 2 shirts and 1 sweater and a Thompson grocery paper bag. I didn't even have enough money to buy a suitcase, and stayed in a 1-room a bedroom in a house, and rented that with another individual, another gentleman from Elroy, and I had to work my way through college, and I was lucky enough to get a job at the state capitol. And I worked at the state capitol first as a messenger, then as a clerk, and I looked at my state legislator and said, I'm as smart as he is, I'm going to run for his seat. And that's how I started. I ran for the state legislature when I was age 23.
Unbelievable.
And got elected when I was 23, the youngest at that time to ever get elected to the state legislature. And stayed there for 20 years, and then I went on to become governor for the longest period in the history of the state.
Is that a fact?
14 years.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. What a story.
It is a story. It's a good story.
I'm amazed. I'm just like shocked. So you didn't really, you've been in public service your entire life.
No, I was in government service, but when I was in the state legislature, I always worked. My wife's Sue Ann, and we've had 3 children. And I practiced law back in Elroy and Mauston and Oxford. And then I got elected governor in 1986. And the longest period of time that anybody else had ever been governor was 7 years. And I served for 14 years. The only Republican that's ever run and elected across the state 5 times, which makes me, I think, the most powerful candidate to run for the U.S. Senate. Then I went out to Washington and ran one of the largest departments in the federal government, Department of Health and Human Services. And then in 2004, I decided that I was going to go into the private sector. So I've been in the private sector for the last 7 years, from 2004 till now. And then I decided, because of lots of reasons, mainly because of my children and grandchildren and their future, that I decided to run for the U.S. Senate.
Wow. Well, that makes you a legend.
Well, I don't know if it's a legend, but
14 years as the governor.
14 years. I was the longest serving governor at that time in the history of the country.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're saying that the reason you're running now is because of your children.
That's the dominant reason. There's several reasons that I'm running.
But the bottom reason is really because you know that the future of the country is not going in the way that it should be going. And in order to make it go the right way, you've got to go into office again. You've got to do something and fix it.
We've got to take over control of the U.S. Senate and change the direction. And I'm by far the strongest candidate to win the state, based upon my experience and the fact that I've done it. And we have to be able to stop Barack Obama and elect a Republican president. We have to elect a Republican Senate, and then we have to start changing the fiscal policy. We cannot spend ourselves into oblivion or bankruptcy, which is the direction that Barack Obama wants to send us.
Right. Well, one of the things that just really drives me crazy are all the regulations that he has put into effect. What would you do to change that if you were elected senator?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would get rid of the the Bourne bill and get rid of Barney Frank and Dodd bill and allow the free enterprise system to work. But, you know, there's so many laws that have been passed under the Obama administration, and the Dodd-Frank bill is one, you know, that's crippling our financial institutions.
Right.
It's almost impossible to buy a house these days because banks are afraid to loan.
Right.
And as a result of that, the housing industry is at an all-time low, and we need to bring it back. And you've got to be able to take off some of these rules and regulations. Energy. Can you imagine that this president was able to somehow, because the environmentalists decided that it was the right thing to do, to close down the Keystone Pipeline? This is a pipeline that would bring the shale oil from Canada to Houston and be able to help us with our energy needs. At the same time, creating 100,000 jobs, 20,000 directly on the pipeline, but 80,000 that would be able to be started because of the pipeline.
And it's ridiculous because look at the price of gas. It's going up.
It's going up.
And up and up. We're told it could go $5. It could go even
Absolutely.
above that this summer.
And everybody better realize that that's the cause of Barack Obama's policy, that energy is going up. And isn't it amazing that the Canadian Prime Minister, Mr. Harper, who I know, is saying, you know, if you people in the United States don't want to buy our oil, we'll ship it to the Chinese.
That's right.
I mean, it is absolutely, if you want to write a humorous story, that's your punchline.
Right.
I mean, Barack Obama is the person that was able to drive the Chinese into, or the Canadians into the Chinese hands, and because we weren't smart enough to buy their oil. Now, you tell me that is just absolutely the height of hypocrisy and idiocy.
It is. It is. It doesn't make any sense. No. And then we have China that is drilling for oil when we can't drill here off our shores or on our land. We have it going to China again, who is eating our lunch, really, when it comes to imports and exports. We're just lost to them.
And Barack Obama is bowing to the Chinese leaders instead of standing up. I mean, I was just amazed that Barack Obama would bow to the leader of the Chinese government. And, you know, and we owe him about $3.5 trillion. It's absolutely, I mean, the height of lunacy to think that we're going to grow out of this economy by borrowing money from the Chinese, 42 cents out of every dollar. And I was up, Sandra, in Alaska when I was secretary. And I went up to the area that they were talking about drilling for oil in Alaska. And to give you a proper perspective, and your listeners' proper perspective, it's about the size of Madison versus the state of Wisconsin. That's the size that they were going to be drilling the oil. Even smaller than the circumference of Madison, smaller than a 30-mile circumference. Is the only area, in the rest of the whole region, is the size of Wisconsin where this oil is going to come out of. And I told the people, he said, well, what about the caribou? And I said, the caribou are smart enough to walk around. They don't need to walk through the oil fields.
Move to a new neighborhood.
So, I mean, just to look at the policies of this administration just surprises you and concerns you. And that's why I'm running, because I have run one of the largest departments of the federal government, Department of Health and Human Services, was elected 5 times across the state. And I know that I can do things that are necessary to change the direction of this great country.
Right. I'm sure you can, Tommy. I also know I'm very concerned about Iran and their missiles. This is a serious problem for our future. You talk about the future of our children. They are going to have to live with this over their head if we don't do something about it now. And Obama doesn't seem to care or really seem to grasp the immense threat that it brings to us. What can you say to that? How can you answer that and put the fear of God into him to get him to listen?
Well, first off, you're dealing with a fanatically madman by the name of Ahmadinejad.
Right.
And Khomeini, the super head of Iran. And you've got to be able to penalize them to the extent of controlling the exports going into their country. You've got to be able to freeze their assets so that they realize that rationing is going to be a necessity, because if they're going to continue to do this, The free world is not going to accept it. We got to tell them in no uncertain words, if they try in any way to clamp down on the Gulf of Hormuz, that's an act of terrorism, and it will be dealt with accordingly. And we also got to support our friends and allies, the only ones we really have in the Middle East, and that's Israel.
Right.
And I've been to Israel 4 times. I know the government there, and I've been honored by the Israeli government. And the Israeli government is very concerned. They're going to have to retaliate unless the United States stands up strong. And it's not the way Barack Obama is going that gives any kind of solace or any kind of feeling of security to the Israelis. And we have to give them a lot of security. We got to tell them we are there, and you got to tell Iran that they better keep their hands and mitts off of going into Israel, and they better stop building a bomb. I think Romney and our candidates for president, Romney and Santorum and Speaker Gingrich, have all said they will not allow for Iran to have a bomb, and I think that is correct.
I'm sure they won't.
A nuclear bomb.
They won't, but Obama...
Obama will.
He will.
Yes,
he will not stop them for whatever reason. I don't know what it would be. But we have a presidential race coming up, and we have candidates that are still running for the election, the nominee. Do you have a favorite that you want to support in the race?
I'm not picking any one of the 3. You know, the primaries, I know all 3 of the individuals. I have worked with all 3 of the individuals. I know Governor Romney and Speaker Gingrich and Rick Santorum, all wonderful men. I just wish they would turn their rhetorical firepower against Obama instead upon each other.
Right.
Because all they're doing is bringing down more advertisements from the Democrats once one of the individuals is chosen.
Absolutely. That is going to happen. Well, we are so happy you've been here today, and we wish you luck in your new upcoming campaign.
Well, thank you, Sandra.
And
I'm happy that you're in Wisconsin, and I'm delighted to get a chance to meet you. And
yes, well, we'll
get
see
me on
more.
your program again, and I'll tell you some more war stories about.
Oh yes,
about the federal government, and also about how we were able to build Wisconsin when I was governor.
Absolutely, we will have you back on.
Thank you, Sandra.
Especially with the election coming up, you'll be here, front and center.
Thank you very much, Sandra.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching us today. We've been glad to have you here. If you'd like to go to our site at www.whosright.org, please do, and we'll see you later. Thank you.